what does the Bible say about marrying a second wife? I'm a Christian, and the lady in question is also a Christian. I believe he currently has a wife, the way it's drafted.
Let me just say this, and we can address this with more detail, later, since this is a theological issue. I've heard a lot of people, so-called theologians, suggest that the Bible is silent on polygamy, and that's not true. You see, when you are a good student of the Bible, you know that everything relating to marriage, God refers to the beginning. So, a good example, the disciples had a question about divorce, or the Pharisees came to ask a question about divorce. Bear in mind that Moses already had a principle for divorcement, a procedure to follow. And this follows with the argument of maybe polygamy, because people use the law is silent on it, and even some of the patriarchs of the faith, had multiple wives. So this is a parallel here. And Jesus did not answer based on what Moses said. He answered based on the beginning. He says, have you not read that in the beginning God made man and woman? He says, and he says, so what God joined together, let no one put asunder. Meaning, from God's initial order of things, you can get God's consistent mind about marriage and how it is to function. So, as it pertains to polygamy, if God wanted man to have multiple wives, he could have just formed, it wouldn't have cost him anything. So Adam would just open his eyes and, 3 beautiful ladies. And then this will not be a debate. Listen, what I'm telling you is how Jesus himself answered questions on marriage. To understand God's plan and God's priority and God's wisdom when it comes to marriage, you go to the first marriage. And then another thing you must bear in mind, a lot of people try to dismiss this. When I say to people that in 1 Timothy 3, God is giving the requirements for a bishop, and it says, amongst other things, he must be husband of one wife. A lot of people say, well, I'm not a pastor. But when you look carefully at that list, you will see that many of the things that were mentioned, if not all of them, were things that are expected of Christians also. So the logic is this: someone who will be a leader in the church should excel at the tenets of basic Christian devotion. So that means what was expected of deacons and bishops are also expected of believers in Christ. So don't just say, oh, don't want to be a bishop, I don't want to be a deacon, so I can have multiple wives. If God said that about deacons and bishops, then he says that about all believers. So that's argument one. And then my first answer and most important answer is how Jesus answers questions on marriage. Because listen, the questions on marriage will be endless. I don't want to give more suggestions, things about how to, anyway, I don't want to give more questions to be asked, But one simple principle is go back to the beginning, just like Jesus did. Go back even before Moses, because there are things that were permitted because of the hardness of the heart of people. So Moses legalized divorce not because it was God's will, but men, their hearts were too hardened to tolerate God's ultimate plan. Are you getting what I'm saying? So by that same logic, you can't say in the Old Testament even David had multiple wives. Because of the hardness of your hearts, some things were tolerated, but now in Christ we have a different lens with which we see things. After all, the stony heart has been taken out of our flesh. So that's my response.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for that answer.